Hi, everybody. My name is Ed, and I'm a curator at the Broad Museum downtown. I know you have a lot of choices about what to do during Freeze Week, so thanks for spending an hour with us here in the early evening. So we're going to talk about for about 45 minutes, and then we'll do 15 minutes of questions. Hopefully it'll be fun. So we're joined, the occasion, as you all know, is this incredible show by Sayre Gomez. We're very fortunate to be doing the conversation actually surrounded by the art. That's somewhat rare. But I wanted to start. Because my assistant curator, Jennifer Venegas Roca, and myself, we did a show a couple of years ago based on a painting by John Baldessari called Desire, Knowledge, and Hope with Smog at the Broad Museum, in which both Jonas and Sayre were included. And that exhibition was a sort of tragic love affair with this city that is both bewitching and very hard on us. And I think that what Sayre has done here is a testament to that idea. This is a great town. This is not an easy town, and I think that something that Sayre tossed off while we were backstage here or in the back room. You said, "How do you make a portrait of this city?" And you just asked that question, just sort of floated in the air. And so maybe let's start there. Maybe let's start with Los Angeles as the occasion for this exhibition.
Does it work? Okay. I said that just
You
now?
did.
Really?
You did. I don't have it recorded, but you did.
Yeah.
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 I wrote it down.
Yeah. So how do you make a portrait of a city?
Yeah, I'd like to think that this exhibition is somewhat of a portrait of what's going on here right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I know how I do it, but I think it's super interesting. I think it's very telling, regardless of how it's done, of just what's happening. I think the landscape is more salient and more powerful than, I think landscape painting as a genre sort of fell to the wayside a long time ago, or it seems to get overlooked or something. And I actually think it's very telling, very interesting. So that's kind of why I'm drawn to doing it, I think. And I think it's like sitting in traffic and looking around and realizing kind of where you are is actually pretty powerful. Yeah.
I agree. And I guess it starts with photography for me and for you, how I would make a portrait of Los Angeles. And it really surprised me when I first moved here and inspired me to paint things I'd never seen before. So that's what inspired me, I think, to like new plants I'd never seen before, or different color, different light, different things to experience. Take pictures of it. That's how
absolutely.
That's how I started.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think I responded as much to the natural world of LA as I did as much to the architecture and the built environment and the way the city is kind of organized, and the uniformity and how it kind of clashes with nature or something. I think that's what really struck me about first moving here. And yeah, I think that was one of the first things I kind of responded to when I started making paintings that were sort of reflective of my experience, like the work we see here. Fitting these kind of dichotomies together, like putting these things that are sort of antithetical because I think that's what this city really does, you know? It's these like extremes into one sort of experiential plane.
I think it would be good to dive into this picture right behind us, fire season number 9. So this is the first, I saw this painting in progress in your studio. And, you know, for those that don't live here, this city went through it a year ago in the most dramatic fashion in both the Pacific Palisades fire and the Altadena fire. So much immense loss, both to the art community and the city of Los Angeles as a whole. At the time, this is, you know, a little bit personal, but I had a friend of mine who lost his home in Altadena, and he wanted to go see it. So it was still on fire, that the city was still on fire, but we sort of talked our way through the cops and went up with the power lines being down and the gas fires burning and the open flames. And Sarah, I have to say, you know, when I walked into your studio, that is seriously what the color of the sky was. Like that is what the ashes felt like. And then, as with all of your work, you constructed this image. This is an image that comes from many different, and Jonas does a similar thing in his work, which we'll talk about in a second. But how did you put this painting together? How did this come about in responding to this historic crisis here in LA?
Yeah, I mean, we live in Eagle Rock, so we're pretty close to Altadena, and I waited quite a while before I went up there. Like I waited maybe more than a month, but you know, I wanted to sort of get a firsthand look, but also like trying to be sensitive too, and not just sort of, I don't know, take advantage of this crisis. But I did see this fence, so that's the only thing that's like actually from Altadena. But yeah, I saw this fence. I thought it was so interesting the way that it kind of melted. It's not burned, you know. It's just from the heat, which I think is kind of interesting. It doesn't have like it's not all like black or not, you know, charred or anything. It's just from the heat, which I thought was kind of intriguing or whatever. And so, but it kind of looks like a skeleton or something. So I kind of like built the painting around that image I took of that fence. And across the street from my studio, there's like an encampment that is like, you know, growing and then gets cleared out every couple, I would say, 3 or 4 times a year. It grows and grows and grows, and then it gets cleared out. It grows and grows and grows. It's directly across the street from my studio. So I took a photo after it had been cleared out of what was left, and so I put that in there. And even like some of the background imagery is like trees and things from my neighborhood. So I kind of build out an image, or I build out a painting with a multitude of images, and I just wanted to make something that was emblematic of this without being, you know, a direct sort of poaching or something, you know? Like I wanted to make something that was more, I don't know what I want to say, like, you know, like the collage element of it.
But
I think.
Just to set it up, I was very curious. So Jonas had an exhibition recently here at David's gallery, and I was like, I wonder which Jonas painting was here. You know, what was on display where fire season number 9 is, and it was a painting called Future Zoo, 2021, and it turned out that is also a somewhat apocalyptic image.
Right. It's supposed to depict like what a zoo would look like after the apocalypse. Like if the nature started taking back over the architecture. So it's funny that it's similar. That's why you thought it was interesting, because of they're both apocalyptically linked.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But what I also thought was interesting is that you and Sayre, you share a process that is rooted in what you mentioned a little bit earlier in photography and then collage. And both of you, I associate with being sort of slice of life painters, but both of you are incredibly careful in how your images are constructed and how it comes together. So how does that picture, how do your pictures come together through that process?
Well, when I look at Sayre's paintings, I always think that it's something that he wants us to see and puts it together a very particular way. I don't really dissect it as if it's important to me that I know that he has gathered things and put them together. I think it's the way they all sing together that feels like a moment that really happened for him, or a moment that he wants us to see. And I think there's something similar about that with the way I use photographs, in that I put them together. Sometimes they're a straight appropriation because the photograph is great, and other times it's a combination of adding and subtracting or moving things around and chopping them up, and then presenting them to the viewer as if this is how it was, and trying to kind of keep that through line. I think that I see a big connection in that in photography. That's why my first response to your first question was like, I see most things through photography a lot of times because I'm looking for painting ideas that titillate me and that make me want to paint something. If it's like a fruit still life on a TV show, or some pictures of a zoo, it's sort of like a catalog of photos that I'm combing through, that I want to like weave together. And I think that we have a very similar approach, even though it's depicted differently.
Yeah, like what you said about some things you don't need to touch or something. I feel that way as well. Like this door painting is something that I didn't really alter, other than just sort of idealizing it, making it look like an actual, like an actual object. Whereas like this, like I was saying, is like more like collage together. It sort of needed that, I think, to sort of complete it, to make it read and to resonate,
But it's not necessarily that important for people to know that it's a unique photo that you found or that it's collaged. I mean, I feel like I get the sense that you want it to feel as if it was captured in the moment, even if
a bit. But I mean, I would say like, I could potentially do more to camouflage it. So I think like leaving it in a somewhat precarious place, like finessing some things and not others, just sort of like, I think that little tension becomes interesting, because I think it like plays with people's perceptions, it plays with like people's expectations, and I think like that little gap is what kind of makes it resonate, and so then people do that from work to work, and it starts to create like a little bit more of a, I don't know, dynamicism between the different works. Like people might know, like, oh, like I've heard him say, or we read this, that some things are altered, some things are not, and da da da. So you kind of have this little gap of how are you reading it, or like this little moment of illegibility or something.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
The sculpture down at the Gallery 3, I don't know if everybody got to see that, but it's quite a masterpiece of the graffiti buildings downtown. What of that did you alter in your observation of it when you decided to put it together? What did you bring? What did you bring, and what did you leave behind?
Well, I didn't leave too much behind. Only like very, very almost only things that we really couldn't figure out how to capture, you know, like I tried to make that as accurate as possible. Like this door painting as well is like as accurate as I could make it. So it's like, you know, not everything gets altered, not everything gets cobbled together. So like the sculpture down there is about as accurate as I could make it.
It's almost like the building was like a ready-made.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like
Right.
if I could just put the actual building here,
Right.
you know, that would have been much easier.
So that's the thing. I know you described it, photographing it, like thousands of photographs.
Yeah, 7,500 photos the drone took. And then we had to Photoshop all those to isolate the graffiti and put it into the thing to make it, yeah, we could print it on the plexi.
Right. So finding things that you know that you can execute versus the like potpourri of things that you collect that you
Right.
can add together.
Yeah, I think it's like, it really is like how things resonate with me, and like the graffiti, the ocean wide, it's just so singularly iconic that I think like adding or taking anything from it would diminish the like potency of it. So it's like that's like ready to go. Like this door painting for me was like ready. I couldn't have added anything to make it better, nor could I really put it into a different context. You know, I don't think I needed to do anything, so it's like standalone. Like or like this the painting here with the Pink Panther. Like it's interesting to me, like so random and strange that like an insulation company or like a roofing company uses the Pink Panther. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like it's interesting, like to look around and sort of read the room and see, like, oh, like people are still really obsessed with being like a kid in some way, and like here's an example of that. So it's like, oh, the Pink Panther, you know. But then I was like, but the building on its own isn't like enough. So then I added like the sign, like the billboard in front, which I had from from 4 or 5 years ago that I was going to paint, but I never did. And then I added that, and I put those little walls that always divide parking lots at strip malls, and just like built it out, and then added the background and Corvette or whatever, the Mustang. But just like, yeah, like started like turning it into like a bigger thing, because I didn't think the one thing resonated enough, or it wasn't like as like, it wasn't Oceanwide Plaza, you know what I mean? Like it's still cool, but I needed like help. But it's more like, yeah, like, and then it has to resonate with like the rest of the room and make sense and like kind of start to tell a story. So yeah.
Well, you talk often about being inspired by your kids, by your kids altering your relationship with the city of LA, and a relationship with your work. Children are all around us here, from the Richard Scarry mural behind us to the Precious Moments doll at the top. Could you talk us through that a little bit? And then I think that goes for you as well, Jonas. So would you mind?
Sure, yeah.
Tell us about your kids.
Well, you have to respect their privacies, you know. But no, yeah. I mean, it's like I think I had my first child in 2020 and my second in 21. So it's like really like right when the pandemic started, which I think is kind of interesting. But yeah, so it's like it maybe took us 3 years before we really like got into the swing of like being a parent or something, or not like being a parent, but like being a parent in the world rather than being a parent in like this very isolated little, almost like a vacuum, going from home to my studio, maybe to my sister-in-law's house, and that was pretty much it for like 3 years or something. But yeah, I think then like once you're like really out in the world, experiencing the world, it just starts coloring the way you sort of see everything. And so like, you know, like the video that's in the next room is kind of like, I had the idea for that a long time ago, but it just took me to get to this show where I was starting to pull from more of their world and incorporate it, more of their world into how I see the world. And yeah, like it's just, things are just so surreal when you're experiencing the world with them, because things that they see and pay attention to are not the things that we see and pay attention to. And so I think like honoring that and also like incorporating some of that, like some of what they respond to, I think becomes quite surreal when you start to recontextualize it through like adult eyes. So like that video is just like their music, you know, set to footage from just neighborhoods that we're often in, like neighborhoods around my studio, neighborhoods around our house, in between around their preschool, and then yeah, like set to like some of their favorite songs, which are on constant rotation when we're driving. But yeah, yeah, and then like, you know, like I think that the sort of surreal aspect of it became kind of interesting for me. You know, I think it's like everything I'm doing, I'm like kind of forcing these conversations or sort of putting these contradictory sort of elements together. And I think it kind of like functions to make both seem more extreme. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's like pretty interesting. I don't know. I could go on forever, but
I really like the video. My wife made sure I saw it like the second time. She's like, I know you saw it, but you should really check it out. And I think it's heavy. It's a heavy video. I think the show's this thinking about raising kids and driving around LA. I can definitely relate to you.
It's a wild experience.
Not being from Los Angeles, but my kids are from here, and their experience of growing up here is like sort of my first experience of raising a child in Los Angeles too. So I do have, I mean, a little farther, 10 years along than you with both of my kids, but I think that's the beauty and the fear with kids growing up, and how they might see LA through your eyes or their own eyes, and my experience with kids is more of like this thing I remember reading that Joe Bradley said that always resonated with me, that he saw his kid made a cool drawing and he was like, whoop, I'll take that. I think I'm more in that category of
That's funny.
how I think about my kids, like they're stealing their creative juices like a vampire. But yeah, I think also like we talked about before, like how you prioritize your time differently when kids enter, when studio practice has been like your number one thing times 100, and that whole experience, and I mean we both have our kids around our lives a lot, and I think the work's always going to be about my life, and it seems like Sayre's work's always about his life too. So they're heavily incorporated in my experience in my studio, I think, and how I think about things, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think also just on a sort of much simpler level, it's like literally your world is like kind of flipped upside down, and to like not acknowledge it or not incorporate it in some way seems like unrealistic almost, you know. Yeah, it seems like a bizarre thing to like go through life, make all this work that's supposed to be deeply personal, or whatever, oftentimes is deeply personal, but then doesn't like reflect like the most important thing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, your work is like hyper autobiographical in a way. That's one way to look at it. That it's your deep interest. I mean, that's what.
Yeah.
And so I think it's exciting. Yeah.
We met last week to sort of pregame this talk. And I wanted to follow up about something that you said, Jonas, about your kids, plucking from the experiences of your kids to make work. My introduction to your work sort of was through that lens. I talked last week about when I see one of your paintings, this is especially true of the basketball cards, of your portraits of sports figures. there's a way that it addresses a memory that comes from a very deep and far away childhood place. And the way that you handle your marks on the surface of your paintings and how they're put together from a series of photography and collage almost causes the memory to kind of flicker, kind of quiver on the surface. I wanted to follow up and ask you about that, about how your relationship to memory, specifically your childhood memories, and how that plays into you.
Well, I hope it flickers more than it doesn't flicker. I'll tell you that. Well, it goes along the lines of what I was just saying to Sayre. It's things that are important to me that I'm trying to depict or recreate as a new memory for myself, or maybe the viewer can experience like a little part of that. I pick a lot of things that aren't that necessarily close to me as like a relative or like a dog I owned, but I try to pick things that are emotionally exciting to me, like baseball cards. So, everybody has their own weird things, but I just sort of try to navigate my interests, I guess that's how I locate it. I think I spend a lot of time looking at photos and collecting them and not acting right away, because I make paintings from photos that were like pictures that my dad took in the 70s or pictures I took like last week of my wife. And so I think that's part of it, because of the sort of mixing and matching and collaging and thinking about what might resonate sometimes happens in one image, like we were talking about with Sayre, or it's like over time and collecting things and thinking about how they might work together, and then you're just walking around one day in your studio and you're like, this with this and that, and it all makes sense because I've been looking at it for so long. And so I think, or thinking about it, because the way I spend a lot of my time is, could that be a good painting? Could that be a good painting? Let me take a picture of it. Like, not all the time, that's not my whole life, but a good percentage of my life, I would have to say, is thinking about that, fortunately or not. So I think that's when we get that little flicker, I want to keep it going.
You did a painting that we talked about called Pour Room, in which you have a ledge of your kids' toys intermixed with some of the toys from your own childhood. I love that painting, but you made a painting shortly thereafter called Kernels, where it could be said that each and every one of those dolls became Chucky and became Freddy Krueger. There's certainly a collision in your work between kind of the protected innocence of what you hope your kids live in, and the sort of outright invasion of the city.
I think that's I don't know, maybe unique to LA, maybe not, but I feel like more times than not, like we kind of travel through the city in a very specific route to get to a specific place. It's like very destination based, so it's like, you're not like walking around just seeing what might happen and, checking things out as you go. You're like, okay, I'm going here. And you go from one safe space to another safe space. And you're very seldom just sort of like out experiencing the city for its own whatever. So I think, that painting is very much about that. Like, everybody has their own kind of like safe little zone that they've created for themselves, that like that's where we really exist. So it's like that's kind of how the city is like organized.
And when we were talking about that, Jonas, you said that often your practice is rooted in a desire to stay positive inside of Los Angeles, inside of yourself, that your painting practice I think this was Sayre's words, not yours, but Sayre said that your practice was self-soothing, and you did not seem to disagree with that. And when I look at your work in relation to Sayre's, there is an interiority to them. Sayre's are very much landscapes. When you engage landscape, those landscapes often come into the interior. You find the landscapes become a pattern on the surface of a table that the outside bleeds into the inside, like Matisse would do. Could you talk a little bit about the interiority of your practice and whether that's accurate, whether this idea of self-soothing painting is something that you can get down with?
Well, I think I'm like a puzzle project-based painter, where I try to take on something that's complicated and figure out how to paint it in my way. I think in general, I was saying like my painting practice is keeping me sane in a healthy kind of way, where I interiorly I feel a lot more discomfort than maybe my paintings feel for the viewer. Like I'm depicting things that are really important to me or interesting to paint, but it's a way to stay grounded in sanity for me. Also, just personally speaking, as like I don't know, my life would be different if I wasn't painting. I feel like it's so I don't know, self-soothing, pretty accurate. Well, I think I'm not a photorealist, or I don't depict life exactly like you see it, but I'm using the pictures and images that I'm interested to depict my interior ideas externally. And I think that's part of what hopefully people feel, that because I'm trying to interpret something or re-represent something, but through mark making and a good amount of color and emotion and flatness.
As soon as you said that, Sayre, the idea of something being self-soothing, I naturally wanted to apply that to you and put your own work through that test. You also asked at the studio visit.
Doesn't work as well with my
Well, anyway,
work.
here we go. We're going to try this. You openly wondered, and we didn't have an answer to the question last week, but you said, "Are my paintings violent?" I don't think your paintings are violent. I think that they often absorb, work through, and process the trace of violence in this city, but they are not in and of themselves violent. So very much in the way that Jonas described, that intermingling of his own psychology and his work. What do you think in terms of your work and your own making your way through it? Is your practice self-soothing if it's not violent?
I don't know if it's self-soothing, but I don't think I could not make art. I think I need to do it. I've always needed to do it. I've been very intent on being an artist, like maybe since I was 5 or 4. Really, like my whole life, this is all I ever wanted to do. So I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine like not doing it or not trying like every second to do it. So I guess it is self-soothing in some capacity. I don't know.
You, we've done several studio visits together at this point, and one of the things I think you always undersell your ability as a painter. Okay, sorry. What I mean by that is you said that you have a process through which you create your image through an airbrushing technique that can be learned. This is something that can be taught, something that a lot of people do. So, of course, I went onto YouTube and watched some tutorials of how to do this. Because sure, I want to do this. I can't do this. I can't. This is the craziest thing in the world. Like your process is outlandish, like it's insane. And the amount of work that you put into this. So from the inception of an idea, Altadena fire, Pacific Palisades fire, to the outcome, what does that look like for you? How does that, could you walk us through that?
What do you mean?
Okay.
You want me to walk you step by
No,
step,
but
how I make a painting?
Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Okay. This umbrella here,
Yeah.
right? This umbrella comes from a cart
Mm-hmm.
that these are everywhere in Los Angeles, and these, sadly, these individuals are under siege
Yep.
right now.
Yep.
This is an extraordinary thing to put in this painting. I remember that time we wanted two things. We wanted information about what was happening, what house was burning and what house not burning, and we wanted rain. So you've presented this upside down umbrella that looks like a satellite dish that's not going to receive any information. And for me, that's just like the most perfect thing you could ever put to describe that. So I want to ask you about that. Like how, how does something like that generate your work? And the examples are myriad here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that we can talk about. The vaccination.
Yeah.
Flag.
Yeah, I mean, really, I don't want to maybe this is what you were saying, but I don't want to overdo it. But I'm just really just looking around all the time, and I think things stand out to me, and then I hold them, like what Jonas was saying, you kind of hold on to it, and it finds its way into the work. And that's like the litmus test, and sometimes it's formal. I think your analysis of it being like a satellite dish is pretty interesting. I hadn't had that thought myself. I know it looks like it, but I hadn't put that connection about when we were all checking the app to see what was happening with the fires, or now we're all trying to see is ICE doing this or that, I hadn't made that immediate connection. I think that's one of the coolest things about art. You can put things into a painting and they become, a myriad of outcomes happen, of understandings and readings. So I think a lot of what I do starts as something formal and then maybe gets, I like to make things pretty spontaneously, especially if I'm working on a collage or something. The painting of it might actually take 6 months or something, but maybe the collage took me an afternoon, and I'm really stoked about how it turned out. And then that's the way it might grow or something.
Ask a question.
Please.
So then the next step would be unwrapping how to make it into a painting.
Yeah.
Going back to a question before.
Technical.
Right.
Yeah.
So you lock the collage, and then it's a series of determining how you would enter.
Yeah. So I would kind of come up with my image, for example, this one, which is maybe 5 or 6 images, something kind of cobbled together. and then we make like a illustration, like we have a few people like working in the studio who do so much, and but yeah, we all kind of work together. Some people do some things, some people do other things, and yeah, we make like an illustration, and then based on that illustration, we turn it into a big stencil, and then from there we make like a pretty elaborate underpainting, which is monochrome. And then the next step would be to paint like kind of like on top of the underpainting, right? So you'd sort of like do another final layer, and then after that we do like a varnish that sort of makes everything look uniform. And then there's some parts like that are more atmospheric, like the skies or something. Those get airbrushed with a projector. I mean, everything's airbrushed, but the skies are done with a projector, so we don't make a stencil for the sky, but there's like always some things that,
Cool.
yeah.
What about the lightning? Not a lot of lightning here, but it feels, this is one of those moments where
You don't need much.
you don't need much. But I wanted to, because lightning appears in your work often.
Yeah. It's like Hitchcock or something to me. It's like, I always kind of think like, because the way that they're constructed, it's like I'm using backdrops. Or I use a lot of like stock photos and things like that, especially for the skies and sunsets. Like they're kind of like idealized. So yeah, like, the sky is like a stand-in for like happiness or warmth or positivity, whatever. And then, the lightning is a stand-in for like drama, So it's like I like using it for like different, to achieve different effects. It's kind of about artifice or something. They're like stage cues or something. And like, if we want to get into more of that or whatever, like just using airbrush in general is about using like a kind of a Hollywood tool or something. They're about the tool is sort of developed to do photo retouching, and it's used in background painting and stuff. So it really kind of all has a conversation with photography and reproduction from the inception.
So we're at about 40 minutes here. But one of the things that I wanted to ask maybe before we open it up to questions, the two of you now, you've been in the game a long time here. You've lived in the city a couple of decades now. I remember Jonas show Black Dragon Society, some time ago.
2006, October 26th.
There you go. So 20 years, and right, is that right?
That's
Okay,
right.
good. And Sayre, you must have moved from Chicago
2006 also.
2006. So that's okay. We're sitting at 20 years here, and the two of you reflected in your studio that there's been a lot of sort of ebb and flow. You've seen the art world here in LA evolve many times. That time. When I left your studio the other night, I was curious about what you meant by that, and whether I could ask
Me?
both of you. Yeah, I thought since we're at Freeze Art Week, and we're thinking about the art world, I thought it'd be cool to ask the two of you that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think.
It's definitely cool to show in LA now. It's definitely cool to show in LA now. I remember in 2006, it was literally like, you want to save your best work for New York because nobody's paying attention here. And I feel like that's changed.
Yeah. When I
in
first
20
moved
years.
here, everybody just said like, "Oh, there's no collectors here. There's nothing's really happening here. This is a place to go to school. This is a place to impress the other artists because there's a lot of great artists here." But there was no collector base or no like real upward momentum from being here. I don't know. I think that's all changed.
It's hard to even.
And also, just like logistically, like the map has changed a lot since. I
think people really want to show in LA, and I think people really want to come here and see what's happening. I think this is the this weekend's kind of an example, or this week is kind of an example that this is like sustainable, and that this is a fun place to be. But I mean, the museums have been more and more involved over the years with artists
yeah,
and
absolutely, yeah.
contemporary art, and growing, of course, and the amount of great artists moving here, and opportunity, and galleries starting up, and collectors finding out about the artists that live here. It seems like all the things that you'd think of are obviously like much grander. But I still love it. It's great.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
I went out on Friday. I never go out, but I decided to for whatever reason. I went to Patrick Martinez's show at Charlie James. It was unbelievable. Like Chungking Road was full again.
Back.
all the galleries were opening. There were DJs. You know, it really felt like 26. It felt like 2006.
Yeah.
Only this time, you know, there's a great infrastructure of galleries throughout the city. Like you said, there's a lot of institutional support for local artists. There's a big collector base that's very enthusiastic. Feels good. Feels good.
I think Chinatown is still pretty cheap to rent in if you find the right people. From what I can tell.
I mean, I lived there for a while. I loved it.
Sick.
I lived in the old Perez, the old
Ooh.
Perez projects. That was funny. Yeah.
Oh, the white building. That's right.
The white one, yeah,
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
white tile. Yeah.
So maybe a couple of questions now that we're at 45 minutes, as promised. Anybody have a few thoughts for these gentlemen?
All right.
Hey,
See you
ya.
guys.
Oh.
Oh, there we go. Here we go. Yeah.
You can? Oh. No. Oh, the digital artifacting on the edges? Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, specifically with like what you're talking about, like, you know, these, like the way you make, or the way I make these is like, there's a lot of stenciling involved, and that's how we get all the hard edges and stuff. And so what happens is, anytime you have like a tape line or something, there becomes like a little hard edge that drives me nuts. And so then I was like, oh, like maybe if we paint into that a little, like you can actually camouflage it. But then I think like beyond that, just like kind of conceptually, it makes the work more interesting, because then it like blurs that line further between photo and painting. And I mean, I think photo and painting are, you know, are really so interconnected that I think it's like just such an interesting conversation. So I think that like something like including the little digital artifacting, the little white highlight that happens, like if you look at any digital photo and you zoom in on it, I mean, that's also like part of it is like we're working in such like nuanced, detailed capacity that like you always have to kind of grapple with that. And so I realized like, oh, if I just like add that back in, it kind of like, you know, camouflages this hard edge tape line that drives me nuts. And then also, yeah, makes the work sort of more compelling or interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think painting is like, sounds weird, but like I think painting is like bigger than photography. I mean, just photography is only 200 years old, give or take. Just the history is not there. Like painting has such like a different history, and so I think like, my paintings like use photos, and so I think like that dialogue is super interesting. But I wouldn't really ever consider just making photos on their own. I think like I'm interested. I mean, I'm interested in the history of both of them, and I'm interested in the like dialogue between the two. But I just think like painting has such a more complex, like rich history, and so like being in dialogue with that is kind of like what I'm most interested in, and like how it kind of resonates with people is just so much different than a photo. Actually, like if this was a room full of photos, I don't think anybody would really care. I think because they're paintings, it's like it's like the meat of it or something. It's like that's what makes it like thing for people, I think.
But that
What do you think?
I think it's the human hand, the interpretation, and the newness of the thing that's not a photograph. Like the painting is
Right.
alive in a different way. But
singular.
we might be biased. We might be slightly biased. But
Yeah, bias. So it's a singular thing. It's a handmade thing, and it's just a completely different object at the end of the day. And sometimes I struggle with like explaining why I think it's important that they're paintings versus photos. But I think at the end of the day, it just it resonates a lot more for me as a painting. Maybe it's just more for me than anyone else. I don't know.
sometimes when you talk about photos, we talk about the past. It feels like it's more like drawing, or like it's photos, but you're using it.
Yeah, like photos are like my
painting
sketchbook.
purposes.
Yeah.
Painting
Totally.
purposes.
Mhm.
Like it's a means to get to the painting.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question really, but that's all I got.
Far back there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of boredom at play, I guess. But like I think because I just built out the practice, over a number of years, and it's like more of like a team now. It's not just me by myself. Like that's the other thing too, is I think like people still have like a romantic notion of like what an art studio is, and it's like people maybe think it's like just one lone wolf like struggling it out on their own, like with their nothing but a paintbrush and their ideas. But like I have like a studio, and we all work together, and it's like kind of feels like a normal job in a weird way. Like show up and drink coffee and chit chat, and then we work, and then I maybe do this and someone else does that, but we're all working on the same common goal, and then we have lunch together. And it is boring sometimes, and it's kind of tough sometimes, and like but we also have deadlines and things are going, and like it's like the thing has to happen, and we just all kind of like hunker down and we listen to music, and I don't know. Oh, do the sculptures help? Yeah, I mean, I've been making sculpture all along the whole time too, and but the sculptures are kind of similar. Like they're really labor intensive, and they're really detailed, and they're really, I mean, I mean, they're all paintings too. I mean, I kind of came to the sculptures like through the lens of painting, and so like the first, I don't remember, but like this thing. Like I started making sculptures that were kind of like these junction boxes, like these street furniture kind of things, like back in grad school, like 20 years ago, and like, you know, the fabrication aspect of it is really simple. They're just like wood and foam core and styrofoam. It's all simple, easy construction. The thing that, in my mind, makes them interesting or kind of whatever is that it's all painted to mimic reality or something. So it all kind of has a direct relationship to the paintings as well. So they all kind of come from the same place. Like, you know, or like the telephone poles next door, like everything is hand painted, and it's kind of a different kind of painting. It's not like rendering details as much, but you know, like making all the surfaces and doing everything and making the wood grain and all that. Like, it also takes a lot of work and hand labor and stuff. So it breaks up, I guess, a little bit, but it's also like comes from the same place. So it's all work. Or painting these guys is kind of the same. Like, they're all painted in the studio, and you know, so yeah.
Maybe one more.
It's good. Horror stories? I'll let Jonas take that.
No comment.
Yeah, dude.
Galleries are amazing and they're great. I love all of my galleries.
Well,
It's a good note to end on.
okay. So,
Congrats, Sayre. Great show. Yeah, big congrats.
Thank you both, and thank all of you. As I said at the beginning, you have a lot of choices this week. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks so
Ed.
much.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Ed.
everybody. Yeah.
Thanks.